Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I am Susan Berishaj. I'm taking over GMAT Club's YouTube channel for this live. So thank you for joining us. Today I'm going to be talking about the MBA applications. I know we are already, I can't believe it, in April. And round one is just around the corner. I know you may think 5 months is a long time, but time flies really, really fast. I mean, New Year's was just yesterday. So today we're going to focus on how to be effective, essentially, and efficient in the MBA application. And I have prepared a few slides for this presentation, and then we're going to go into Q&A. So if there's anything in the slides that I'm sharing with you that you have additional questions, or you just have your own question that you want to bring to the table, please write it in the comments. And at the end, I will be looking at the questions to answer them live with you, in the extent that we have the time. And if you can, please do engage with the community here and let us know where you are joining us from, and perhaps which round you are considering applying to. Are you applying this year or next year? And some of the schools that you are looking to apply to target. That would be really great to just know kind of where our audience is at. So with that, I'm going to get to the presentation. If you see me look on the side, I do have another screen which has the back end. So if I see any comments popping up, I may be looking on that direction, but just know it's on the other screen. Awesome. So an intro of myself. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me, I am the founder of C Admissions. It's a boutique admission coaching firm based in New York. And I have been a coach for essentially about 8 years now. Time flies. I was thinking about that. I was putting this presentation together. And I'm an alumnus of NYU and Yale. I have worked in human resources, private equity, and hedge fund, where I have had different exposures that really help me help candidates go through the admission process and help them tell their story in their applications. I have a 94% placement rate. So 94% of candidates that I coach that go through my process are getting offers at top-ranked, top 20 business schools. So let's talk a little bit about you. So if you are considering an MBA, if you are on this live, you are really someone who sees a bright future for yourself. You see yourself in a position of a C-suite executive, or perhaps you are someone who is looking to be an entrepreneur and really being a leader, a change maker in a particular industry or sector. And you do see all of you yourselves as being future leaders and are considering an MBA to help you tool up and be able to make that next step in your career. And what are some of the next steps that you are thinking about? Can be that you want a different career path. So you have a couple of years of work experience and you're looking to pivot, you're looking to change, do something different, and an MBA is a perfect place to go, or perfect way to go about that. And perhaps you are looking to maybe stay in the same sector, stay in the same kind of function, but you're looking to build more leadership experience. That, of course, and getting to that leadership role, to that C-suite executive role, may require an MBA, and this can be something that an MBA will serve a perfect, it will be the perfect solution. And you also may be looking to join a different industry altogether, or perhaps look to stay in the same field and go into a different geography, or a combination of these categories. These are all perfectly normal things to go through, to want, and look for an MBA to help you make the transition. So most people will look at, most people I speak with at least, look at an MBA as a way to help them transition, build leadership development, and have like the most common things are the network as well. So those three are the most common, but obviously the MBA is going to support you with the industry change, because you're going to get exposure through the courses, through the hands-on learning opportunities to change industries, to change functions, so that you can build your resume and make that transition. Obviously, in a different geography, you will have the network. You'll understand how business is conducted in those geographies that you're looking to work in, and an MBA would be a great way to do that. So your aspirations also mean that you want a top-ranked institution, not just an MBA. You want an MBA from a top-ranked institution. Obviously, those are highly competitive. For ambitious people, we don't want things that come easy, right? We want things that are challenging. We want to prove that we can do it. And a top-ranked business school that has, single-digit, sometimes admission rate, that's the ultimate test, right? And you're also looking for a strong network that will open many doors along the way. Because an MBA is really not just about your post-MBA job. It is about your long-term career that you're going to build, and how you're going to be able to leverage that network and leverage the opportunities or the connection to that school to help you along the way in your career. So this is a long-term investment and not just post-MBA. So how do you, thinking about the stakes, right? What you have going on. All of you are, or most of you are, currently have a job. So you're managing your job, you're managing your GMAT or the GRE test prep, you're managing your applications and all the complexities that come with the application, and maybe you even have a volunteer opportunity that you're engaging with on the, as a side initiative that you really care about. That is a lot to handle, right? It's a lot of work and time management that you have to be diligent about to be able to accomplish all of them effectively. So today we're going to talk about how to most effectively and efficiently prepare for your MBA application, especially that we have a few months that you can really maximize this period of time to put together a strong application that sets you apart from the crowd when you apply in round one. So what do you need to be most effective and efficient? To be efficient, you typically need a roadmap. What do you need to do? How do we get there? And then the effective, you need action plan, right? You're going to need to know what steps you need to take. What are the things that you need to do in order for you to get to the end result, which is submitting a very strong MBA application that has the admission team enticed to invite you to an interview, and then, of course, offer you admission at the end of the process. So the elements of an MBA application submission I have outlined here in this presentation. And those elements are, you're going to need to understand the narratives that you bring to the table. That's the first component. The goals is actually, the narrative selection and the goals can be interchangeable, but they rely on one another. The goals is very important because we'll talk a little bit more about that, but goals are foundational to the MBA admission process. You need an MBA resume. So this is very different than a job resume. You need obviously to craft your essays, and most people just think about those two pieces, so the resume and the essay crafting. But then you also need the letters of recommendation, obviously choosing the recommender, and then the letters of recommendation that are to be submitted. There are obviously a lot more pieces to the application process, but these are some of the most important elements that lead to you submitting an application on time and meeting the requirements of what the school is looking for. So let's go one by one. The narrative selection. So why is that so important to begin with? So narratives are the tools. So if you imagine yourself building a house, your narratives are the tools that you need in order to build a house. You can't, you can't be able to put together a strong application if you don't know what stories you're telling. So one of the things that involves narrative selection process is reflection. The first thing, what are the experiences that you have? Start crafting, start putting together a repository of experiences that you've had. You are 27, 28 years old, the average MBA applicant, student, yes, MBA student, applicant. You have had, let's just say 20 years of experiences that you have cultivated, or even 27 years of experiences that you've cultivated. What are some of the narratives that show up in your in this reflection process? And I would not be I would not judge any of those narratives. I would include all the narratives that you can think about. And the reason why I say this is sometimes when I work with candidates, sometimes they are really readily dismissing some narratives that they don't think is important, that ends up being the centerpiece of the entire essay. So if you go in your reflection process of, I am going to just share all the narratives that I can think about, this can be really pivotal in helping you put a map together, put a roadmap that is going to be effective in the admission process. But it's not just, here's a story, it's about going into depth. What does the story mean to you? That this is the process of the application that really does take time, because we think about experiences that we've had, but we oftentimes don't reflect on those experiences and dive deeper into what do they actually mean and how they have shaped us. Obviously, as a leader, as a future leader, you need to be a communicator, and an effective communicator at that. The way you show the admission team that you are an effective communicator is by writing a really effective application process. So the application is the first thing that the admission team sees before they invite you to interview. So you can be an amazing oral communicator, but if they don't see that in writing, it doesn't get you to the interview. So this is an important, the narratives are so important, and how you communicate those narratives is exceptionally important. So when you start putting together your list of narratives, you are going to want to think about how the narrative, as a second step, how the narrative fits what the schools are looking for. So you're going to look for leadership kinds of narratives. You're going to look for narratives that speaks to your collaboration abilities. So this can be you can have a lot of different ways that you collaborate, and make sure you identify what those are. Stories that are going to be also important in your application needs to showcase that you are a strategic thinker. So what are some of the stories where you have zoomed out and looked at the problem and then taken steps in action to resolve that problem? Obviously, community oriented is really important. So what are some of those initiatives? This can be something that's related to you at work. It can be related to you while you were in school, and it can also be related to you now in the communities that you are a part of outside of work. And then everything has to be impact. You have to be impact minded. So what is the impact you've been able to continuously show time and time again that will make the admission team convinced that you are the leader that they want, and that you are the leader that is going to make a huge impact in the industry that you are interested in being a part of. So with the narrative selected, the next step is the goals. And goals are important because it allows the admission team to assess their ability to help you get to your dream career. What they want to know, essentially, that they can be of support. If the answer is no, we cannot be support to you. So for example, if you pitch, this is just such a very, very easy one, so I'm going with it. If you pitch private equity venture capital in your application, and there is zero exposure to private equity venture capital or paths to private equity venture capital, there's like a 1% chance at best you being able to get there. 1% chance, I don't think you would bet on a 1% chance. And the admission team will definitely not bet on a 1% chance. So the goals, if the admission team feels that the goals are unreasonable, they will not be able to get you to that goal. The answer is 100% of the time, no to your admission. If the goals are reasonable and you have a strong application overall that speaks to the character that the school is looking for, you have a much, much higher probability of being told yes. So this just speaks to the importance of goals in your application. So when you think about your goals, you want to really look at the experience, the catalyst moment that led you to the future that you want to build. This is the North Star that is to guide you everywhere. And this is the reason why I start with narratives and move with the goals in this particular scenario, because the narratives can help, especially if you don't know where you're going in your goals, with building that North Star. Then you want to identify the pathway to shorten your long-term goals. What gets you closest to that North Star in the fastest way possible, right? Effective and efficient is important. And then when you think about your goals, when you put them together, your goals must be ambitious. They must be realistic as well, right? You don't want a goal that you don't need an MBA for. So it has to be ambitious, but you don't want such an unrealistic goal that an MBA can never get you there. So the balance is key. It has to be impact oriented. It has to be a goal that is greater than yourself. It's greater than your salary. It's greater than the single company that you'll be working for. So impact is important. And then the 3 C's, right? It has to be clear, it has to be concise, and it has to be compelling for the admission team to be really excited that you will be someone who's going to make an impact in the industries that you are, that you will be working at and contributing to. For the purposes of time, I'm going to speed up this. So the next piece, once you have the goals, so you know what your, you know where you're going, you know what your North Star is, you know your long and you know your short-term plans, and you have put together a list of narratives that you can use in your application, then comes time to work on your resume. And the resume is an at-a-glance review of your career to date, and it highlights your accomplishments as well as transferable skills. So goals are important because you want to select also narratives that help the admission team see that you will be able to get to the goals that you want. If you are if your experiences are not presented effectively in your resume, so this is the reason why the resume is also important, will lead to, of course, not being a very strong application overall. If you think about the MBA application, typically a school will have about 2 to 3 essays, short answer questions that you can share your experiences. And for each of those essays, you're going to have probably, in most scenarios, 1 example. 2 to 3 examples are not enough to sway the pendulum towards admission. So you need to use your resume as another way to communicate to the admission team what accomplishments, what kind of character you are that adds value to the communities you are a part of, and that you're going to be able to get to the goals that you are looking to get into. So I look at the resume as another place to include narratives. So your resume is going to be very much achievement oriented, right? It's going to include the scopes of your leadership and your responsibilities, but very macro level. What kind of problems are you solving, sort of scope and responsibilities? It's going to highlight your most impressive projects, where you've had the most impact, but this doesn't mean that it's going to have a litany of all the stories and let the admission team choose which stories make more sense. You have to be the choice. You have to choose. You have to be the decision maker of your own story that you're sharing with the admission team. So choose 2 to 3 examples that speak to what you've accomplished, what you've achieved the most impressive achievement, but that also speaks to the transferable skills of where you're looking to go. Your resume is also going to highlight your community engagement, whether that's in college or post-college, and it's going to give a little bit of personality and interest. And this is where you can really show something that's more than just traveling or reading books or investing, which is so generic and it does not mean much to much more than just words. You can really dive into and speak about how you engage with the things that you are interested in. And the resume is a perfect way to do that. Let's move on to the essays. So the essays allow the admissions team to see you in action, right? So the essays are going to give details, and it's going to show the admission team of how you work with others, especially if it's a collaborative kind of experience that you share. How do you solve problems, and then how do you deal with setbacks? These are all elements of the future leader, and they're looking to see that in your essays and in your materials. And so the essay must tell a story that addresses all parts of the prompt. This is something that I see often, and it's also something that I really pay quite a lot of attention on. When you sit to write your essay responses, I would suggest for you to be most effective in that writing exercise is to break down the prompt into all of its parts, because you must answer all of the parts of the prompt in order to fully answer the question that the school is asking. And make sure that you tell a single story in a single essay in most scenarios, although there's room sometimes so like Harvard and Stanford are the exception. The story must be a detailed account of the experience. Now, I don't mean the details that you include is going to follow the logical progression of how things happen. So it doesn't mean I first got the project, then I got together with my team, talked about the strategy. Like, that's a boring story. So you're going to have to be a little bit creative in how you tell the story and maximize the word count that you have in there. But we do need to see you in action. The admission team needs to see you in action. And this is a really important element of your essay writing exercise. Moving to the letters of recommendation. The letters of recommendation provide the admission team another view of who you are as a character. So, and of course, the accomplishments that you've had. So when it comes to your application, before they get to even meet you, before the admission team gets to meet you, all they have about you, all they know about you is what you wrote in your application. When they ask for a letter of recommendation, and that can be one or two in most scenarios, they are looking for another person's perspective on you as a future student at that school. So what that recommender speaks about you should be really speaking about the same character, what you write in your application and what they speak about you, because otherwise it's going to sound like they're two different people. So you see yourself in a different light than the rest of the leadership sees you, right? So it's really important that you communicate the same narrative. And the letters of recommendation must be written by someone who has directly supervised you in most situations, right? That would be the ideal scenario, and can speak in detail about your contribution to the firm that you have worked at. The example must be details that they include and add value to your application. So this is really important where you speak with your recommender. So you want to make sure you are effective in your preparatory material, so that you can guide the recommenders on what you want them to say. This way you can both be on the same page with what's going into the admission team from you, and also what they're sharing with the admission team. This is notorious. I see this quite more often in international applicants, where the letters of recommendation in different parts of the world look very differently than letters of recommendation, especially for business school in the US. So this is an opportunity for you to also coach them on what they should be doing. So plan your time most effectively, do the things that you need to do first, so that you can communicate with your recommenders the content and the details that they should be including in their letters of recommendation. So can you do this? Yes, you can. You can do all of this. You can, I know this is a lot and a lot of different pieces to keep in mind when you are putting your entire application together and thinking about a strategy. Absolutely. So this is not something you are like ambitious. You have succeeded a lot already in your career. You can totally do this. Can someone help you in this process? Absolutely. There is many experts who do this day in and day out, myself included, who can coach you through the application process and make you even more effective and efficient in that, in the steps that you need to take. So I would love to share with you, if it's all okay, my new program that I've launched. It's called the MBA Admission Fast Track. It's essentially a boot camp on your putting together your application. It's a course that starts on May 11th and ends on July 5th. For 9 weeks, we will be meeting one-on-one for 2 hours once a week. And it's going to have 5 training modules and 4 live Q&A coaching. For the training modules, we're going to focus on just kind of the structure that we focused on today. So the narratives, the goals, the resume development, the essay crafting, and the letters of recommendation. And for the live Q&A, it's broken in between those sessions. So after each of our 2 live sessions, you will get to work on a little bit of the content and then come back with your questions that any of the struggles, any of the experiences that you've encountered along putting together your application, that we can address them. The attendance is capped at 8 MBA hopefuls. I really care a lot about providing as much value as possible. And if the room is any bigger than 8, it will be very difficult to be as attentive as I would want to be. So 8 is the maximum that I'm looking to have in the MBA Admission Fast Track. So for each of the modules in particular, we'll be working through a workshop of a particular topic. So if it's a resume, if it's a goals, we will focus 2 hours on that specific topic and working with you through the workbooks, and each one of them is building on, each component builds on the other, so that by the end of that 2 hours, you will have a solid first draft of your piece, right? Whether it's the goals or the resume or any of the pieces you're working on. There will not be any guesswork left. It's just obviously crafting. You can't expect to write an entire resume and be complete in 2 hours, right? Then the Q&As will allow you, of course, to bring the challenge after you work on it on your own, bring the challenge to the community, and I will answer the questions live that you have. This will be done in a private Zoom, so none of this will be shared externally. And we'll also have a private Slack channel for the community. So your other 8 peers will also be in that Slack channel, and we can communicate through there. And if you can't attend the session, if you want to re-watch the session because you're working through the material, you can't remember what I said, the re-recording is going to be shared with you during after the session, of course, for you to have access to it afterwards. If this is something that you're interested, there is a QR code on the page, a link in the chat that you can join, or you can take a look in more details of what the program entails. But if you are unsure if that's the right thing for you, or if you want to talk about ways that we can help you through this application process, definitely reach out for a free consultation, and we can talk about what is it that you need and how we can be of full support in this process so that you have a really strong application by the end of your submission, which is going to be, I'm assuming, targeting round 1. So I'm going to move to questions now. So if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can actually move the page over here so I can see what the comments are. So just give me one moment while I do that, and you put together your materials. Okay. Wonderful. All right, I'm ready for questions now. So I have a question here from Antonio. I don't know if it was answered. How do you convince a firm to sponsor you, even if there are no leadership opportunities at the moment? And if you accept, what does that narrative need to look like? Okay, so sponsorship, you essentially have to be able to sell what value will you bring to the firm if you had an MBA. So you really want to look at, even if they don't have a leadership opportunity at the moment, you want to look at what is missing in the firm. What are the opportunities for growth that they're going to have that would allow them, that would add value for them to sponsor you to an MBA and then be able to come back and contribute to the firm's growth. Typically, there is a contract that is signed where you will go back and work for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years sometimes, that you're going to give to the firm essentially after your MBA to make it justifiable for them to invest in your MBA program. So think about what the firm needs. How can you meet the need by getting an MBA and then pitching that to your firm's leadership? So if this is something you're looking to do, I would encourage you to really think what those opportunities are and plan ahead, because it may take time for you to identify those and then to put your pitch together and to really present and convince them. And of course, this is not a $100 investment. It's a huge investment, right, that they would have to make. So there will be a form of a board or executive leadership that will have to make a decision on making the investment. So plan ahead for that. Awesome. So another question that is here is how to start writing the SOP after drafting the SOP on my own when I can get the guidance for improvement. So if you start, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, so I'm just going to lay it out there. And what I think you're asking is how to start writing the SOP and then articulating the improvements for the feedback that you're getting. So the statement of purpose, or the essays really, because MBAs do not have statement of purpose in the traditional sense. They do have many different kinds of essays. So I would encourage you to first think about what is it that you're trying to share, and make your plan and make your strategy of what you want to communicate to the admission team. I know this may seem like productive in the sense of like, I need to step back and not do anything and think about and lay out the plan of what I'm trying to communicate. But that makes a huge impact in how effective and efficient you are in your entire application process. Because if you know the path that you're going to take, the path becomes easier. If you don't know what the path you're taking, it's just zigzagging, getting confused, and doing a lot of rewrites. So that's the first thing in the SOP. Once you have a solid idea of what you want to present yourself and you have chosen the right narratives to present yourself, then when you get your feedback, it's really more about making sure that the feedback is articulated in the SOP in a way that is adding value to the story that is being shared. Obviously, you're writing about your own experience, and your own experience, there's a lot more images and a lot more elements to your own experiences that you're not putting on paper. So having a third party read your essay and asking questions about different elements of what you wrote only means that these are gaps that your essay does not currently have that you need to fill. So look at the feedback that you get as a way to really make sure that when this essay is being presented to the admission team, like I did an excellent job, clearly, concisely communicating my experiences in a way that they really don't have questions as it relates to that specific example and that specific experience. So that makes a huge difference in the quality of your application. Obviously, I know there's a lot of buzz now in the MBA admission community around ChatGPT and how effective it is, and can you write your essay through that? absolutely, you can write a very macro component. Obviously, you want to be very careful in what you're doing. But the depth and the strong essays are the ones who really dive deeper and communicate communicate the story and experience that goes much deeper, much more deeper layers that will help the admission team see how you are in action. So hopefully that helps answer the question, if that was the full question that you had. And then the other question was, what are the skills, certifications which I should achieve to make my profile strong? This all depends on what goals you have. If you have the ability to enroll in some sort of certificate-bearing program, that's amazing. But just be mindful, if you're targeting round one, there's only so much time you have. So you can take all the certificates. If you don't write a strong application, it's not going to lead you to the admission that you want. So really just make sure that you are accurately measuring your time and how much is possible. I know it's difficult to do that, because if you've never been through this process before, you don't really know how long things take to actually accomplish. But definitely make sure that you're starting the process of the application now, even if you don't write your essays now. So here, the next question. Ideally, how soon should I start drafting my essays if I'm targeting round one for fall intake? So round one is any time between the middle or first week of September until the second week of October, depending on the school that you're targeting. I would start the application materials now. So the essays, the narrative selection, the goals, the letters of recommendation, that piece, you know what you need to do, and you should start working on those now. The essays for the new application cycle have not come out yet, so I wouldn't start writing those, but I would do everything else. Once the essay come out in June, July, depending on the school, then all you have to focus on is essays, and that gives you enough time to complete everything and submit by round one. Okay, the next question is how to prepare the LORs to apply to different universities. I'm asking this as a recommender may get a lot of work on their hands submitting recommenders to 5 to 6 universities. Absolutely, excellent question. So you want to look at what questions the institutions are asking. So the business schools are asking. Sometimes you have, a lot of the schools use the GMAT letter recommendation, which has 3 questions in total, 2 of which need to be answered fully. The third one is optional. And they are going to ask essentially how you compare to other qualified individuals, and then feedback that you've received. Other schools are going to include the GMAT letter recommendation questions. In addition, will add their own. So Kellogg and Berkeley have something like that. And other schools will have different questions altogether. So Wharton is one of them. I would look at how can you consolidate information so that you make it easier on the recommender writing the letter recommendation. So of the 5 or 6 schools, most likely 3 of them, or 3 of them at least, are going to have the same questions asked. So how can you consolidate that for them? And then, of course, tweak the ones that ask different questions. So you really want to be also strategic in how you put together the material to guide the recommender. And you want to think about the examples that you want them to speak about that are in line with your narrative, with the full narrative you're trying to communicate externally. Awesome. So should I mention the name of some classes I want to attend in the essay, or should I focus on what I did and show my potential as a future leader? You want to do both. You want to do both. You want to show what you have done as a potential, like in the past, to showcase that you have the leadership capabilities. But you also want to show that you are forward thinking, that you are already imagining yourself at the school, that you are really taking. You took the time to really understand what the school has to offer, and then you communicated the things that are most impressive to you, that you're really excited about. There's a level of excitement that comes across in an essay that is well articulated and communicated. And you want to try to get there as much as you can by the end of the process. Awesome. Okay. So how to enthuse aspirants from low-key ideas and have them brainstorm for the well-thought roadmap. Let me see if I can understand this question. Okay, so I think a better version of the question showed up later. So, what strategies one must adapt to brainstorm ideas, and how many years to be accurately presented in planning the essay writing while competing to complete your GMAT score. I'm filling in a few gaps in there, so I apologize if that's not exactly what you intended to say. When you think about your roadmap in brainstorming, you have to think about the goal that you're trying to articulate. So first and foremost, you must identify what is the problem in your industry that you're looking to solve. You must do that because you are a part of a future leadership group that is going to change how businesses run, is going to change industries, is going to impact the world, whether directly or indirectly. So you have to start thinking like that future leader today. So think about what is that goal, what is the impact that you see yourself making in the long term. So that's the first strategy, and you have to ask the questions. There's no avoiding that, right? You have to build that future that you want. And then of course you're going to stress test it. Stress test it means you're going to have to communicate it to people you trust, people who are in business, people who have had different experiences. Do they understand it? Do they have questions? If they have questions, how can you answer those questions? If you don't know the question right now, you have to do research on it. So it's a process of actually honing in deeper and deeper. I did a session the other day on the goals. It ended up being a 3-hour session, all of which was to answer 3 questions, or to write 3 sentences, right? Rather. So the purpose of this is to just communicate that there's a lot of research, there's a lot of work that comes into putting together 3 words, because you have to really make sure that you fully understand it before you can communicate it to someone else. Right. So the brainstorming component is identifying what it is, identifying your own experiences that you can bring in to say that this is where I've seen this problem, and this is how this is how I look to solve this problem. And then the brainstorming comes into how can I make sure that this is refined, crystal clear of what I want to do, and that it's an achievable goal. And if you hear a lot of, well, I'm not sure that's going to be possible, that should be your indication that your goal is not clear enough. So either pivot or look at narrowing down further to make it an attainable goal as well. Amazing. Is GMAT score enough to get into any college? No. I have worked in the past with a candidate, a reapplicant, who contracted me after he was rejected to 8 schools and had a 780 GMAT score. If the GMAT was enough, he would have been admitted. The point is to say that every piece of your application is adding another element of who you are, how you think, what kind of impact you're looking to make to the admission team, that they want to say, yes, you belong in this community. We are people that think in the same way as you do. So your GMAT score is not enough to get admitted. Awesome. Is it late to apply to the UK universities for September admission? Is your application viewed differently while applying to the last second rounds? It's not viewed differently. It's just who are you competing against in the application process. So you have to look at every round in business school as the class is already starting to form, meaning the admission team has already extended admission offers. They have accepted. They're having a community, building a community. By the last 2 rounds, the application may be getting to a full state, meaning most of the class is going to be filled by that point. So there are going to be people who are on the wait list, and they're going to be new applicants like yourself if you choose to go that route. And your profile needs to be better than the ones that are on the wait list in order for you to get admitted. So think about that element first and foremost. And then the second element is think about if you are not admitted, if you're not successful in applying in the last 2 rounds of the application for European schools, would you be reapplying to those same exact schools in round 1 in the upcoming application cycle? If the answer is yes, I would strongly encourage to wait. The reason why is because they will ask you what has changed since you last applied. If you're applying now, and the round 1 is, in a couple of months from now, there's not going to be much that has changed in your application. So you want to give yourself the opportunity to shine the brightest. And if I know that means an extra year to wait, so I totally get that part. But if you can, if it's feasible to you, I would strongly encourage to wait. If you were just like, I want to try the application process and don't want to reapply again, I would not reapply again to those schools, then by all means apply, and it's a good test run for the investment. Okay, so please share your view on the employment opportunities post-MBA at UK universities. So opportunities essentially are going to be in Europe. So there are plenty of opportunities. One of the challenges in Europe, in UK universities, obviously you'll have an opportunity to work in the UK after your graduation. So there will be opportunities there. Sometimes one of the challenges is that Europe has so many different languages, and what happens if you don't get a job in Europe, in an English-speaking country? What are the hurdles that you'll have to overcome to get a job elsewhere, and that you will still find, you being employed after your graduation? So you want to really evaluate what sector you're going into, what opportunities are available in that sector, and also evaluate how the schools specifically that you're targeting, what are their career development, career services team look like, and how much do they help, especially international applicants? Most of the European schools have a lot of internationals. So how do they help them get to the jobs that they want post degree? So leadership and uniqueness are different from school to school. Should I write leadership and other factor story followed by my definition? Absolutely. This is about showcasing who you are. It's leadership. How do you see leadership? There are some schools that even ask you, who, I think Columbia has one of those questions. Had one of those questions, who's a leader you admire? That's an opportunity for you to share, not just who is a leader you admire, right? But it's also an opportunity to share, how do you see leadership? And how does, that definition show in how you are a leader and how you look to develop as a leader? So it's a multi-tier response. But yes, your definition really will be about your unique perspective. And that's, at the end of the day, what will make your application different, is the more you can share who you are as opposed to what you think the school wants to hear, the stronger your application is going to be. Okay, wonderful. So I think we don't have many other questions that I can answer. So we're gonna end the session here. Thank you all for joining and for having such wonderful questions. I invite you again to join us on the or to take a look at the 9-week MBA admission fast track. It starts on May 11th. We'll be having additional events, so join our events page on our website, as well as if you want to have a conversation about how we can support you in this process, please reach out. We offer a 30-minute free consultation to discuss your application, your goals, and the ways that we can support you in that process. Thank you again for joining, and have a wonderful rest of the week and weekend.